Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our watchers and listeners. My name is Tom Williams, and I'm a recovered alcoholic, and welcome to Recovery Live, Came to Believe Recovery's weekly live stream where we talk everything recovery. And I welcome my co-host from the left coast, Alicia Martinez.
Hello there.
And Alicia has just emerged from a week-long Rumpelstiltskin bed sickness.
Flu or something. I don't know what it was, but it was bad. I still have a cough, but I'm out of bed.
Because to go a week without talking to Alicia is not normal.
No, it was a long time.
Nobody knew where Alicia was.
I wasn't answering emails or texts or anything.
Now, for anybody that knows Alicia, guys, that's not that uncommon that she doesn't answer texts or phone calls or emails.
Eventually, I do.
Eventually. So
But
now that she's better, we can start making fun of her a little. If you're with Alicia in person, and I am often, in one hand or the other is her phone. But yet when you text her,
I don't see it.
Not get any reminder, any answer at all.
Well, I'm probably working out or with clients or running or something. There's that.
Well, there's always a reason, guys. That's the whole thing. There's always a reason. So sometimes I want to be passive aggressive and just when she texts me, I'm not answering. But that would be passive aggressive. It would be like a step 10 thing. So I don't do it. I answer. So enough about all that. But glad that she's back in working order today. And I don't think the two of us have been on Recovery Live in a few weeks, right?
Yeah, I know. Last week we did a video or something instead, didn't we?
Well, last week we had mocktail hour, so we want to talk about that a little bit today. It was our first ever mocktail hour here in New York City, which is where I am. I am in the Radio City office today, looking down upon lines and lines of people, Alicia, wrapping around the building, going to see the Rockettes.
Oh.
So somebody told me yesterday that the Rockettes do as many as 8 performances a day.
Wow.
So there's no way that one set of those dancers could do all 8. Now, maybe they do. I'll do a little research and find out that they're just young.
They could.
Hardcore, and they do it. But I'm willing to bet there's 2 or 3 lines of them. There's 40 or 50 of them, and they just have different, like line 1, line 2, line 3, and they're all just as good. They just
rotate.
But, being that I have, that's what I have to fill my life with today is to figure out how the Rockettes do 8 shows a day. Right?
Because that's important. Need to know.
It's a need to know. We need to know that, right?
Yeah. But tell us about the mocktail hour.
All right, so guys, mocktail hour. I don't know if any of you know what a mocktail is, but it's a really emerging phenomenon. It's a thing now. A mocktail is a cocktail without alcohol. So mocktail, like a mock of a tail, right? Mocktail. I don't know where that came from, but maybe that is. But so increasingly now, when I go to restaurants, if you look at their registrations or look at their menu, it used to, sometimes it would have non-alcoholic beverages listed that way, but generally it would just list sodas, but it didn't really label it anything. You can now find a section under mocktails where they offer a couple of drinks that are a mixed drink of some sort, of flavors of different things without alcohol. So it's a thing. People want mocktails. I went to a dinner for my birthday, and the restaurant had mocktails, and it was this espresso mocktail. It was a cold drink with espresso and something else in a it was in like a gin glass. You know those gin glasses? It came anyway.
Oh, martini.
Yeah,
Gin?
martini glass. Yeah. Martini glass. Now, I never drank martinis when I drank because the glasses were too small.
Yeah, it's like a shot glass.
Booze could be in that, right?
Yeah, no.
I know, right?
Just like coffee. No, it's
Right.
gotta be okay.
My answer to people is, what kind of drink did you like? Well, whatever came in the biggest glass. You know?
Got me messed up the fast. What do you mean?
Right. So I will digress now on that because it's fun. I went to cut a Christmas tree down this weekend with a group of friends, and part of the whole experience after we cut the trees down up in upstate New York was to go to this restaurant. It was this German restaurant that's very famous. So we were all having lunch there, and it has a bar, and they were having drinks and all. And a couple of the people, these German glasses of beer, these big goblets of beer like this, Alicia, big thing. And I was kidding around, and they're like, well, what would you have gotten? I would have gotten that. They're like, well, I don't care what's in it.
Yeah.
Because of that.
No.
Right. Big glass. And this is the thoughts that we have, that normal people that do not have a addiction, see, Cass is going to be happy because I didn't use the word we don't want to use anymore. People that don't have substance use issues or alcohol issues don't even think about that. I totally think about the size of the glass and how much they're putting in.
Oh, totally. And beer takes too long and it's too many calories. Forget that. Give me the hard alcohol.
I go out with some friends now and I watch the wine they pour in the glass and they put this much in a glass this big. And my thought is, why aren't you filling that glass up? Because it's not about drinking as much as you can for them. It's about whatever it is that you drink, the smell and in the glass is supposed to make it all those things that we didn't care about.
No.
So anyway, if you're one of those and you're in our audience thinking about whether you might have a problem or not, and you think like we do,
you might have a
meet us in Malibu on Friday and come through the retreat. Great segue into that. So wait, back to mocktail hour. So
a lot of people
exist, mocktails, right? And so what we decided was one of the things we've been battling here in New York City is awareness. Alicia, nobody knows who we are, brand awareness and awareness of what Came to Believe is and what they do. And while I've made a lot of inroads in the upper levels and doing some fundraising and some things like that, they're not the recovery audience. And so when we tried to put an event on, we found that the frontline recovery community in New York City just isn't aware of us and may or may not have some resistance to what we do. It's a tough market, New York City, for bringing the recovery of the founders and the spiritual nature behind it. It's a tough sell here until you get into the right roots. Anyway, one of the things we decided to do in partnership with the Phoenix and a group called Absence of Proof, and this is a group that puts on mocktail hours and mocktail events all around the city, pop-up mocktail events, Absence of Proof. So you can hire them to come and they send a bartender and they have this menu of drinks. And it was a pina colada and Cass will remember the name of the drinks. If you remember them, Cass, put them in the chat. I forget the names of them. But they were like mixed drinks with like umbrellas in them and stuff. And he shook them and they were really good. And so we had Absence of Proof come to an event that we held to have a mocktail hour instead of cocktail hour, a mocktail hour for people to come and network and just meet friends in an alcohol-free environment. And Alicia, it was marketed and advertised as open to anybody. Yes, a citrus fizz, a Moscow Mule, and a pina colada. The Moscow Mule had like ginger in it. It was good. Like you tasted the ginger, like a thing. And everybody liked it. But it was marketed to be an inclusive event for anybody that is, even people that drank but just didn't want to drink that night. People that are sober curious. And what's sober curious? We can talk about that a little bit, maybe. And maybe people that were in recovery, looking just for a place to come and just meet some people in a safe environment, alcohol free. And we had a great time, right? About 40 people showed up. We had fun. They wouldn't let me play Led Zeppelin, although because Grant couldn't get to my phone quick enough, we did play a little Led Zeppelin. And then we had some good music. And then we had a panel discussion on sober spaces, what is a sober space, and on the future of recovery. And so it was great. So the inaugural event told us one thing. People do like these things. They search for them. Alicia, we had some people come who weren't even part of weren't on a targeted invite list. They just Googled sober events and found us. Like 2 or 3 people that I talked to. How'd you find us? I just Googled a sober thing to do. So, and they came. So we had a lot of fun.
And you're going to do it again.
We're going to do it again. Yeah, we're going to do them monthly to semi-monthly as often as we have programming. We are going to do another one in January. We'll probably do it we are going to do it at the same location in Soho, if you're in the New York area. And we'll have another program, something on top of just the network and friend gathering. And you can go to Came to Believe Recovery to check out all the upcoming events. As we schedule them, with Lisa and Sarah and I today, we're talking about when we're doing all these things. And there's some things that we got to figure out, who's available, what's available as we schedule them out. But certainly there'll be one in January. So it was fun. We had a good time.
And each time you will have some sort of panel or speaker or something, right?
We will.
Or something.
We believe we want to have it be a little more interactive next time. This was like a panel discussion that was moderated, and it was really great. It wasn't very interactive, and we want to go a little more interactive and maybe a little shorter. People seem to really like the networking part and the friend gathering. I met a bunch of people. I got invited to be on a podcast because of it. And the woman who invited me, her group, we're going to have her on Recovery Live here, Alicia, because I'll go on theirs, they'll come on ours. Another woman we met runs an organization that it's a clothing store where she only sells clothing designed by people in recovery. So we thought that's cool, partner up with her. And these are like living in the go things, right? When you get recovered, what do? Go find out what your talent is. And if your talent is designing, some place to be able to have your designs. So these are the kind of things that we met. I met another guy who runs or is part of an organization that does harm reduction and shelter kind of work down in Battery Park. We're going to go visit him tomorrow. Just a great way to try to bring the recovery community into a place and keep the discussion going that recovery is possible. It can be fun. There is stuff we can do in sobriety, and life goes on. Right? So Friday is Malibu. We'll both be there. And next week, Malibu, yep. Registration closes tomorrow, so if you want to go, register today. And then virtual retreat too is January. Oh, right there, 5th through 7th. You can do it from your home and your jammies, from anywhere in the world, which we will both be a part of as well. And, guys, we found that there were life-changing experiences that came from the virtual. Some of our senior leaders now, actually Dayra, who is the host of the Malibu retreat, her first Came to Believe retreat was virtual. And she had a spiritual experience and got recovered online. And it still can work online. we had a bunch of people from the UK. Whose first retreat was virtual during the pandemic. So, right, the power of the program and the steps and the things that we teach can be absorbed right through your TV screen,
Computer screen.
right through your computer screen. So Malibu, it's our first time into Southern California in many, many years. Alicia, I don't know if you know this, but some of those that were from way back in the day know that there was a couple of retreats run up in the Palmdale area, which is the Mojave Desert, up back in the early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, started. And that's when Grace Snyder was alive, and Mary Jo Robinson and Annette Nelson and all. We all came out. Dale Barker and his wife remember all these events that we came to. But then they went away years, and there's been nothing in Southern California for 20 years or more. And so with such success that we've had in Northern California, as you know, and have been a part of, Alicia, San Jose and Oroville and Nevada City, it was only natural for us to eventually extend it down back to the LA area. And with Dara and a bunch of champions who have really gone on board, we pulled this all together, and the inaugural event reopening is this Friday, Malibu. And then Malibu is like, you know, it's Malibu. What else can you say? Yeah.
That'd be nice.
What? Have you been there? When's the last time you were in Malibu, Alicia?
It's been a while, but I used to live in Southern California my whole life. I grew up there for my whole life. So I went to that beach in high school and middle school and just took the canyon down. And yeah, I grew up right there driving PCH. So yeah, it's pretty. Pepperdine is right there.
You see, that's how you know she's a Californian. She said PCH. So that's a political term. Who knows what PCH is? What is PCH?
Pacific Coast Highway.
There we go. Yeah. 101. Goes all the way up.
Yeah.
So
and I don't know. Well, you were at the facility, so we'll be up on a mountain, but we could see the ocean. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're up on the hilltop at a place called the Sarah Center, and it's a Franciscan friary with a retreat center hooked onto it. So, you know, we've been connected pretty closely with the Franciscans and the Catholic Church as they've partnered come alongside us to give us facilities and all, and to take advantage of what we do, as we did in St. Anthony's in the Bronx, which is a Franciscan shelter. They're not connected, but it's interesting that we got connected with this place, which is Franciscan. They're very accommodating to us. So yeah, it's beautiful, Alicia. There's a point that you look out, and it looks out over the whole ocean and down. It's like the highest point in the area. Like behind them, there's some mountains that go up a little higher, but pretty much there's nothing higher in front. It looks right out on the ocean. It's beautiful. And they have like grounds to walk on, some gardens, and lots of place to really retreat, right? To get away from it all and to come to terms with whatever it is that has you in brokenness. Listen to the process and hopefully leave there living in the go, or starting your life of living in the go 10, 11, and 12. So if you're in the California area, really anywhere in the country, actually, if you want to come, fly into LAX or wherever, or drive on in. Alicia's driving.
I am. Friday morning.
And we'll see a Friday afternoon where we're going to take people through, and we're hoping we're sure actually that this will light us up in Southern California. So we're really, really excited. I'm flying out Thursday morning early. I'm breaking all my rules, Alicia. I'm flying out too early. I've learned not to take the first flight out when you're going to California, because you lose time on both ends of the day.
Yeah.
But
Gotta do it.
What it is. So we're going to do it and spread that life-saving message. And part of what we do in our life-saving message is we teach out of the big book, and we teach some of the principles, right, that are taught in the big book. And we teach and expound on things written in the big book. And that's what we're going to do today, because technically today is book club day, right?
So we chose to look at We Agnostic, which you should be familiar with.
So
we're going to dive deeper into it, right?
Mm-hmm. So instead of picking a book that we have booked, and Alicea and I both have a few books in the works, of which we will return to, we figured this week, let's take a shot at the very book that is behind our whole program. And one of the chapters in it, which is really profound, and it's one of the most powerful, I call it a white paper, exposés, apologetics, and we'll talk about what that is, on the idea of a power greater than yourself and the need for a God, a need for something greater than ourselves to be embraced in order for this process to work, or in order for you to get the process the way the founders got it. Let's put it that way. It's interesting, Alicea and I were talking before we got on, and we were kind of just pre-gaming, and we were looking at the big book, and we said, look how it's organized, right? Chapter 1 is Bill's story, so it's a personal testimony. Chapter 2 is There Is a Solution, which is a very uplifting chapter, talking about the idea that this thing can be solved, with some stories about how it can be solved, and talks a bit about the problem. Then we move into more about alcoholism, which is chapter 3, which again talks a lot more about what is alcoholism, what does it look like, what was their experiences with it, what is some of the traits of alcoholism, what was some of the efforts tried by those back in the day, and this is in the 30s, really, to solve alcoholism, and to talk a lot more about it. And then comes chapter 4, We Agnostics is what it's called. Now, who knows what an agnostic is? Right?
If not, we have the definition.
So before you and I spent 10 minutes talking about the definition, what did you think an agnostic was, Alicea?
Well, I had an idea, but I couldn't put words to it. Like, it's not an atheist. And so then I would just say it's somebody that kind of might believe, but not sure, kind of in the not sure area.
And that's about as accurate a definition as there is. It's actually pretty good. Right?
But it doesn't sound very technical.
Right. The dictionary says this. An agnostic is a person who believes that nothing is known or can be known of the existence or nature of God or of anything beyond material phenomena. A person who claims neither faith nor disbelief in God. And the second definition is a person who has an uncertain or non-committal attitude towards something. So we can be agnostic towards things. You know, it's just I don't care. I take no stand. I'm agnostic about it. I once heard somebody say that the difference between atheists and agnostics was atheists say there is no God. Agnostics say there might be one, but we don't know what he can't do. He has no effect on our lives. He's not connected.
Might be one, but they don't care if there is or not.
And he can't. He's of a no consequence. So
which I think, because I said this before, means then they don't believe. Then they're basically an atheist. Then no, because if saying I don't know is a no, either it's a yes or it's a no, and if it's not a yes, it's a no.
Well, I get where you're going with this, because if you're going to take a neutral stand, you might as well take no stand.
Right.
fine. I get you. I get
It's
it.
an interesting thing to think about. Not like I'm really thinking that is true, but the more I think about it, isn't it? Either he is or he's not. And
Well, Mr. Miyagi says,
sure, then you're
right.
saying probably not.
So, did you watch Karate Kid? It's my famous. Mr. Miyagi,
Yeah, but I don't remember.
he says to Daniel-san, "Are you ready?" And Daniel-san says, "I guess so." So he says, "Hold on, Daniel. We must talk." He said, right? Walk on right side of road, safe. Walk on left side of road, safe. Walk down the middle, squashed. So you either believe or you don't believe. There is no middle. So,
I
or you
think
get
that's true.
squashed, right? Yoda said the same thing. What is it? Yoda said, do or don't do. There is no middle. I forget if Dale Barker was watching.
I know. I was thinking Dale Barker would love that you just said Yoda.
So it does kind of stand to reason. We're either doing it or you're not doing it. If you guess so, you're not doing it, probably. So I'm with you on it. So it's just interesting that they call the chapter We Agnostics. So they're saying we, which are those that wrote the book, the experiences of this is that they were agnostic. They were neutral on the idea of God. And certainly he had no effect, and they certainly didn't rely on him for anything and relied on. So it's written to these people. Now, why would they have dedicated a whole chapter to that right before the next chapter, which is how it works? It must be that it's important.
Right.
It must be the idea of addressing this position that many had was something they felt they needed to address.
Well, obviously, because the steps are all mentioning God and a
Right.
higher power. So let's get to that before we even get to the steps and how it works. Because
exactly.
it's the steps before the steps.
I love that. Steps for the steps. So it falls under we're doing lots of definitions today, of apologetics. Now we're getting fancy. Who knows what apologetics is? Right? Well, apologetics, by definition, is a reasoned arguments or writings and justifications of something. So it's just a justification. So if you're going to do apologetics, it's reasons or justification. And it is typically a theory or on religious doctrine. So maybe Kant and Nietzsche and all these philosophers present apologetics. What they do is arguments to support a theory. In religious doctrine, it might be arguments in supporting the idea that one should have faith and why. And so it falls under that category of apologetics, this whole piece on We Agnostics. It's one of the greatest pieces of the big book for me. It's very, very profound, and it's only 13 pages. It's a short piece, but so powerful. I've read it so many times and pulled so much information out of it. And Alicea, it has so much to bring to the suffering, to help them, and to really dial in some instruction and some experience that they had that we kind of got to make peace with before you move on, right?
For sure. And then even in the chapter before We Agnostics, this might be a good leadway to it, why it's where it is, because it says he made a beginning, his family was reassembled, and he began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. All went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. To his consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. So Therein lies
Yeah, and that was,
spiritual.
where'd you read that from, Alicia?
That was in More About Alcoholism, bottom of page 35.
Right. And back there too, they talk about this psychic change that the doctors and psychologists thought had to happen in order to cure alcoholism. You know, they had very little hope for alcoholics back in the 30s. You know, they would have no answer for the chronic alcoholic, the hopeless and helpless type, as they call it in here in the big book. The type, they didn't know what to do with them. They put them in insane asylums, Alicia, back then. They didn't know what to do. They would pronounce them incurable. So let's read a little bit about this. There's just so much power. We're going to go through a few sections here, guys, and we're going to talk about some of the things. We're going to read between the lines, and we're going to put some things together and see what you guys think about it as Alicia and I talk about it. So it starts off by saying in the preceding chapters, you learned something about alcoholism. And we're going to say addiction, guys. You know that we believe that this program fits over anything that has us in broken. Drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, food, anything. So when I say alcohol, I mean all of these things, substance or anything else that has you beaten.
Yeah.
Alcoholism, whatever. We hope we've made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic, or the addict and the non-addict. So the preceding chapters had a lot to do with that, describing what you were. How do I determine whether I'm the person who focuses on what kind of beer's in the glass or the size of the glass, right? Because and then once you have one, you have to have two, and then 10.
Right.
No difference, right? That's us. If when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely on whatever it is, or if when you are drinking or drugging or engaged in your behavior, you have little control over the amount or the effort put into whatever it is, you're probably an addict, alcoholic. If that be the case, listen to this statement. You may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Good. So this is the tough statement for some people, especially in the modern world of psychology and doctors and people and things.
Yeah.
They're making a pretty bold statement here. Now, Tom didn't make it and Alicia didn't make it, guys, but the big book says it. They thought, this is their thought, the guys who wrote it, that if you're suffering from this type of an illness, this illness that they described in the book before and that they'd experienced, they found that you may be suffering, and remember it says maybe, from an illness that only a spiritual experience will conquer. Now I'm going to let them off the hook to say it may be. So this opens the door for all of you listening that you may be an addict, but you may have the element of it that doesn't require a spiritual solution. I don't know. We don't know. But they said there's a group of people they found that only a spiritual experience would do it. So they're making a strong statement there. So then they go on to say, to one who feels he is atheist or agnostic. So atheist is they absolutely don't believe in God. So that's the difference, Alicia. I mean, the agnostic says, I don't know. There may or may not, I don't know. I don't care enough. I'm agreeing with you, then they don't believe in him.
Right.
Right?
But the atheist for sure says no.
There is no God. Right. Right. Makes this firm statement. Such an experience seems impossible. Right? We need to have a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience. It's tough for us, for this type of person. But to continue, as he, and it says he in the book, guys, I'm just reading what the book says. He means disaster, especially if he's an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. To be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. This is speaking to this person who has evaded or been damaged or been broken or has no concept of God or higher power or ability to understand or been hurt by religious people or anything. to say that my alternative to the alcoholism I've been doing is a spiritual existence. That's why it's hard alternative, right? To normal people, and you gave them that option, who would take the alcoholic death, right? It's bizarre. But some of us did. It was hard. It's a hard position to be put in. But it isn't so difficult. It isn't so difficult. About half of our original fellowship were of exactly that type. So half of the guys that came in, guys, men and women, were of this type, either atheist or agnostic. At first, some of us tried to avoid the issue, hoping against hope we were not true alcoholics. But after a while, we had to face the fact that we must find a spiritual basis of life or else. Notice it doesn't say religious. It doesn't say a specific church. It doesn't say a specific doctrine. It talks about a spiritual basis of life. Perhaps it's going to be that way with you. But cheer up. Something like half of us thought we were atheists or agnostics. Our experience shows that you need not be disconcerted. If a mere code of morals and philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago. We talk about that at retreats. Didn't we try all kind of things to quit? We moved different places. We broke up with a girlfriend, got a new girlfriend, got divorced, got married, had kids, didn't have kids, changed jobs.
Only drink on Fridays. Only binge on Saturdays.
Right. Only carbs. Only eat ice cream. Don't eat ice cream. Do this, right? All of this, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just play poker and not the slot machines. Don't play right? Don't go to Las Vegas. Don't do all these things that people had found. And what they found was that if any of that had worked, they would have recovered a long time ago. Look at that, recovered. I thought you couldn't. I thought you had to be recovered. Right. A subject for a different show, right?
Exactly.
But we found that no such codes and philosophy saved us, no matter how much we tried. We wished to be moral, we wished to be philosophical, we could willed it with all our mights, but our human resources, marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed us utterly. That was this group of atheists, agnostics, this alcoholic group, this group that called themselves the Hopeless Variety, this group that called themselves the true alcoholic. Said that none of these things worked for them. Lack of powers was their dilemma. They had to find a power they could live by, and it had to be a power greater than themselves, obviously, but where were they going to find this power? So we're seeing right now already some of the conditions and the position they were in that brought them to this place where they finally said, it seems like I don't have the power. It seems like no matter what, my will, the philosophies, codes, morals, all of these things marshaled by our will and human resources, we didn't have the power for it. And those first two paragraphs kind of outline that, right? So no power. See where we're going here is about a power greater than ourselves, with some conditions that existed that bring us to this place where that's what we believe. They believed. Well, that's exactly what the book is about. Its main objective is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. So that is all this book is meant to do. This book is designed for somebody who's in a position like this, who defines themselves the way they defined it, has just tried many things and couldn't get better, and has come to this place where they feel like they're powerless. It says that's the main objective of the book, is to help you find a power that will solve your problem. Solve the problem?
If it's solved, then can't we be recovered?
I certainly think so. And this should be great news for anyone listening that doesn't think their problem can be solved.
But what about those that are still struggling and like, no, I don't believe. I'm gonna believe in my light bulb and my group or something.
Well, that's kind of what's the word? A skewing of what's said in the book, a misinterpretation. And that's great you brought that up.
Well, that's like what you talk about and Rick talk about. It's like your own conception of a God, but not your own concept of him. Right? It's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
So that's kind of that.
Your own concept would mean you could make it animate objects or things, but your own conception of a God that they define as a supernatural, spiritual, creative intelligence of the universe. That's all. Your conception of that is what you can start with if certain things exist. And we already started talking about what conditions might exist for you to have to start there. And it should be good news for somebody so beaten by this, so atheist, so agnostic, but yet still can't solve their problem, right? They still find themselves unable
to stop drinking or drinking.
Right. Yeah, we're getting good points here. So that means they've written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral. And it means, of course, that we're going to talk about God. Well, in 1935 and 36, spirituality and God was a different thing in the world. And the Judeo-Christian community and the idea of that was different then than it is maybe today. And God is a capital G. So it shows you that they meant about a supernatural, spiritual, creative intelligence. They called him God. Right? At this point, again, guys, it's not a church. It's not a religion, which many people immediately associate it with. Mm-hmm. God means something they've been taught, some place with a steeple, some rules they got to follow, some set of philosophies they have to accept first. It just does, right? Here, difficulty arises with agnostics. Many times, this is what they said, and we find this too today. Many times you talk to a new man or woman and watch his hope rise as we discuss his alcoholic problems, explain our fellowship. But his face falls when we speak of spiritual matters, especially when we mention God. We've reopened a subject our man thought he had neatly evaded or entirely ignored. Oh boy. We know how he feels. We've shared your honest doubt and prejudice. Now listen to this. This is this place in we agnostics that I think people misinterpret and misread or don't read at all, Alicea, which is this whole 2 paragraphs leading up to when they open up the idea that your own conception is something you can start with. If you put your head on about this is the condition that they outline prior to having that be an open opportunity. Listen, we've shared their honest doubt and prejudice. So doubt and prejudice, you have doubt and prejudice. You've been violently anti-religious. The word God brought up a particular idea of him, which someone had tried to impress upon us during childhood. We've been told about him by some religion, faiths, doctrine. Perhaps we rejected the particular conception because it seemed inadequate. It didn't do anything for them. Didn't do anything for me, right? Going to church, maybe. They rejected it. With that rejection, we had managed, we'd abandoned God idea entirely. We were bothered with the thought that faith and dependence upon a power beyond ourselves was somewhat weak, even cowardly. Looked upon the world of warring individuals and theologic systems and inexplicable calamity with deep skepticism. We looked askance at many individuals who claimed to be godly. How could a supreme being have anything to do with any all? And who could comprehend a supreme being anyway? Yet, it says here, in other moments, we found ourselves thinking we enchanted by a starlit night. Who then made all this? There was a feeling of awe and wonder, but it was fleeting and soon lost. Yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. Let us make haste to reassure you. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside the prejudice and even express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results. Even though it was impossible for any of us to fully comprehend or define that power, which is God. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with him. If you were this person, this agnostic atheist, right? Much to our relief, those, yes, we of agnostic temperament had these thoughts, right? Much to our relief, those people, the relief of those that held that and had this experience, realized that another's conception of God, which didn't work, which they talked about, caused bias and prejudice. Our own conception, however inadequate, again, unable to be complete, not full, was sufficient to make an approach and effect contact. As soon as we admitted the possible existence, this is this broad statement, creative intelligence, the spiritual of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to possess a new sense of power, direction, provided we took some other simple steps. We found that God does not make too hard terms of those who seek him. To us, the realm of the spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or foreboding to those who earnestly seek. It's open, we believe, to all men. Awesome. So when we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God, which is the spiritual, a creative intelligence, spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, right? Not a light bulb. Your own conception of that. This is what they're saying. So where you get the light bulb thing from and all is that misrepresentation. It's just a little cant off that someone said, let's use a light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if it led you to God, I mean, I just don't know how that has power, right? I mean, if nothing else in our life worked, why would a light bulb, right? I don't know.
Well, you can take a light bulb and smash it on the floor. How's that going to help
Right.
you?
And turn it off.
Or turn it off. And now what?
Don't let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from asking yourself what they mean to you. Open yourself up to your own connection. Be engaged. And we talk about that at retreat, guys. Let's get rid of all that. Let's try to get rid of that bias and prejudice. Let's try to shake off the idea and every, objection you have to it, because you found yourself unable to stop this thing that's killing you. Can you, for just a moment, give up on all that and open yourself up to the idea that maybe there is something? They say just that alone is enough to get you started.
This is the thing that came to my head that you and I will love. I don't know about anybody else. But when it says on 47, like at the start, this was all we needed to commence to start our spiritual growth, to affect our first conscious relationship with God as we understood him at the start. So that's like on nutrition and exercise. Just go for a walk. Have 3 indulgences a week instead of 7. Just start there. Don't stop there. Start there. And you're thinking, oh, I can never eat again and I have 100 pounds to lose. No, just start there. And then it says afterward, so when that becomes your habit for a while, we found ourselves accepting many things, which then seemed entirely out of reach when we started. But now, wow, I don't want indulgences anymore. And wow, I lost 55 pounds. And now what? So you keep going. So it's the same thing. Start somewhere. Don't stay there. Like in 10 years, you're still right here. That would be dumb. Whether it's spirituality, nutrition, exercise, relationship growth, if you're still here that much later, there's something wrong. So keep going, keep going, keep going. But you got to take a baby step first. And then once that's kind of like, okay, then you take another one. And then you look back and say, wow, I used to believe in a freaking light bulb. And now look at what happened. But you can't just go here to way over there because it's overwhelming. It totally is. But you got to start somewhere. And that's exactly what this is saying. Even though, I mean, God is a lot more than changing your food. I understand it. But it's kind of, you got to start somewhere.
It's I could just, when you can do 100 push-ups, you look back to the day where you could hardly hold yourself up.
Right. And stop looking at us because we can do 100. Whatever. What can you do now? And then eventually you'll be doing 100 or 200 and pass us or whoever.
I mean, you made a good analogy. We knew you'd go to food and exercise, which you're right. I love. But it says at the start, you're right. We wish to use it. It was all we needed. This is great news for us, right? We presented it. We wish had to start with this man. We believe at the start. Let's see, where is that? It's been proven among us. Wait, we need to ask this a question. As soon as a man can say he does believe, it's going to be sure it's on his right. It's been repeated, prove us. This is great news among us. Wait. At the start, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to affect our first conscious relationship with God, right? And I would say that to affect our first change in our bodies and physical and feel better,
just do a baby step.
The other hand, stop having ice cream. Just
well, you can still have it. Don't have it 7 times a week. Have it 3.
Wow. Power grand subs. All right. So we're nearing the end here, and we're only 2 pages into. There's so much here, and I hope you guys are getting something out of this, and that this is something that you guys have never read or read in this lens or this light. But it helps to clear up, guys, some of the things that have people misguided in recovery. 12-step recovery, I'm going to say. Not all recovery, but 12-step recovery. If you're going to do this, at least understand what they meant by all this and what they meant for them to do if you want what they got. And that's the point here. There are ways to get sober. There are ways not to drink anymore. But if you want what they got, if you want this is what you would need to do. These are the obstacles they found. This is the condition they found themselves in, and how they viewed it and how they got over it and moved on to the place where they were. Just in these couple pages. But listen to this. Besides a seeming inability to accept much on faith, which was what they were at the beginning, right? Because they say, so it's comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler level. Just like you say with exercise and food, if someone says you got to do 100 push-ups or you're no good, you've got to get that freedom to say, no. Just hold yourself up in a plank for 10 seconds. You're on your way. You can start there. You don't have to start by doing push-ups. If you can't do them, you'd give up. And you don't have to accept that even 100 push-ups is something you need. Alicia, there'd have been a day I told you, who cares about that? It's not necessary. And now you and I do 200 a day when we do them, right? We're going to do our push-up challenge again, guys. It's coming up.
It's coming. But we need to be humble and honest. And so when it says, so we used our own conception. So we did a plank for 10 seconds.
Right.
However limited it was. It's limited. I'm not going to stay there in 10 years and still do a 10-second plank. Woohoo! No. Keep going. Same with nutrition. And saying, I only have ice cream 3 times a week. Well, that was where you were 10 years ago. And you're still diabetic and 100 pounds overweight. So come on. We need to use our common sense with all areas of life.
I have a friend who I've been training with a bit, and was told we're going to do a 2-minute plank and was told it's impossible. There's no way. Oh my gosh, no way. And we just did it.
Right.
And I said, so there you go. I thought you couldn't do it. So the
Yeah,
next
you
thing
start
we
with
say,
it, and then
right,
you
so
just
the next
go,
thing I say we're going to do later, don't be so negative about it. Think about this. You were able to do it eventually. So wait, I'm going to read this last thing and then we're going to close it up.
okay.
Besides the seeming inability to accept much on faith, listen to this. We often find ourselves handicapped by obstinacy. Don't be this person, guys. Obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. Where's the prejudice coming from, guys? Take a breath, take a look at yourself, really evaluate. Many of us have been so touchy that even casual references to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism. Just don't want to deal with it. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned.
Yeah.
Got to get past it.
The barrier in the way is you.
Right.
So knock it off.
In this
It's our
matter,
own
right, it says, in this,
right?
faced with alcoholic or addiction destruction, we soon became open-minded on spiritual matters. In this respect, alcohol or drugs or your behavior is a great persuader, guys. If you're not ready now, go on out. The alcohol will bring you back. What do you say? If God scares you out of the room, the alcohol will scare you back in. Somebody said. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. How long are you going to let it beat you, guys? Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope, and Alicea and I do too, great way to end. No one else will have the prejudice for as long as some of us were. Don't hold on to it, guys. If you feel like you're one of those who can't stop, if you feel like you're alcoholic, if you feel like your life is unmanageable, come to one of our retreats. Follow the process that so many have followed, and you may be able to experience the freedom that we have. And one day call yourself recovered. And live in the go on 10, 11, and 12. And reinvent your life and get back everything that you lost and more. And experience that fourth dimension of existence.
Right. And then just ask yourself, which Tom says this over and over and over at retreats, how's it working for you? You're fighting it, you're negative, you have no friends, you're miserable, you're drunk. Oh, no, but well, how's that working for you? Maybe give this a chance. Just saying, maybe. And if not, you can go right back to the bottle. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Or the
It's
food.
it's the fourth chapter of the book, guys. It's important. It's something we all need to read and get our hands around, our head around. Your concept of God, your consciousness, you've got to get yourself ready for it because you're going to have to address it with the steps. So they wrote this in hopes that it would help those of that temperament get over their bias and prejudice and at least be open to the idea of a creative intelligence. And they were sure that that's all it took. Do a few things and it got better. So if that moved you, jump on a plane anywhere around the country or get in your car. If you're in the LA area, come hear more about it. We'll talk a whole lot about it over the weekend. And we'll send you off on Sunday afternoon to start practicing your 10, 11, and 12 for the rest of your life and see where it takes you. Thanks for showing up here on Recovery Live, guys. Alicea and I will be back next Tuesday with a report from Malibu. We won't be in Malibu, but a report of how Malibu went. And see you here again at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. in the UK, right here on Recovery Live.
See ya.
Peace.